Are you following what's going on in Europe right now? I was just over in Europe myself. I was in the UK and I was in Ireland, and I was really struck, especially in the UK, for the animosity that you're seeing towards an issue. Well, two big issues, and they'll sound very familiar to all of you right here in good old USA. You want to know what these issues are? 1, migration, and 2, inflation. It's like, wow, you all are dealing with the exact same stuff. I was talking to one guy and he said it's just out of control, right? Everybody is coming here from the Middle East and from Africa, and we have to take them all in. And there's not a lot of pushback from the establishment and the elite parts of government. And so the people are like, hang on, wait a second. So now when you consider what's going on in France, Macron is calling for new elections. He might be trying to sort of push people to say, wait, are you sure that you're in favor of conservatives, Marie Le Pen? Are you really sure? And so he's trying to use this as an opportunity to say, if so, put your money where your mouth is. But overall, I mean, between Brussels, between Germany, between France, between the UK, I mean, Nigel Farage now, I think, is going to have a bigger political future over there. People are like, we've had it. We've absolutely had it. This came up on a recent program over the weekend, and it's funny to me because the lefties here in the US, their biggest worry about conservatives having a larger voice in Europe is, well, I'm going to play it. You're going to see. I mean, this is to be expected, right? Here we go.
To Europe, where far-right political groups made significant gains in the European Parliament, prompting a political power shift that has world leaders nervous. French President Macron calling a snap legislative election after his party was handed a humbling defeat at the hands of the anti-immigration and ultra-conservative National Party. And then in Germany, Chancellor Scholz saw his Social Democrats party score their worst result ever. The change inside the European Parliament could make it more difficult to pass new legislation around issues like climate change.
Ooh, what are you going to do then? What's going to happen if you can't get all that through? It's really sort of fascinating. So one of the bills that they were proposing would be to limit air travel. Like you could only have so many flights a day in the European Union overall. And I was reading this actually in an Irish newspaper when I was over there. And one of the concerns out of Ireland was, well, wait a second, like now everybody's going to go to London or Paris because they have to, right, for finance and stuff. So what does that mean for Dublin? Because doesn't Dublin stand a shot at being a financial center as well? In other words, you guys have seen success, but what about the rest of us over here? I mean, it's one of the problems, right, with all these initiatives, because you have to make sure that they're fair for everyone. And the fear by the columnists that I was reading there in Ireland was, hey, wait a second, they're gonna just pass over Dublin then, and we're not gonna have the same opportunity that has been afforded to some of these more dominant cities. And it's a fair point. Okay, like none of this is easy, but I think overall what you're seeing, and I question what this means for us here in the US, I think it probably bodes well for Donald Trump. I think what you're seeing is a pushback to these extremely liberal policies coming from many of the elites that just don't work in everyday Europe or everyday America. Right? It's nice in theory. George Soros can go to the WEF and the World Economic Forum and talk about porous borders. But, if you're the country that everybody's pouring into, or if you're even the EU, which is, as we know, many countries, but now everybody from the Middle East, from Africa is all coming into your country, and you're there to give them a handout, and there's no real desire to adapt to the culture that has made so many of these places a success, well, then you're going to have a problem. You're going to naturally have a problem. You're going to have a problem in terms of, not being able to create a population that's on the same page. And so naturally it leads to strife and other challenges. It's happening in Europe and it's happening here. Remember Brexit? We were all watching that as an indication of what it would mean for the United States and whether that would bode well for Donald Trump. Of course it did. But that was sort of the first indication that, a lot of people, they're just people. And they don't like having these things shoved down their throat. So Brexit was the first example of that. Now you're seeing in the European elections, people rejecting all this liberalism in favor of a more conservative, sort of just practical approach to the challenges we're facing. And I suspect that that's going to continue as we move closer and closer to November here in the United States of America.